Here in the subtropics of Florida, it is summer and it can be the hardest time for us to grow. In this video, I will show you what I am planting now to help me with those leafy green crops later. Hey everyone, Natissa here and welcome back to You Can Grow Too. Like I said, I garden here in the subtropics and it is hot, it is humid, and all of the organic matter breaks down really fast. And here the native soil is basically just sand, and that is what all the organic matter turns into. I do use store-bought materials to help me build up my sandy soil, but I also want to find ways that I can use what I have on my property in order to help build my garden up, to help with all that sand, adding back organic matter and adding more nutrition. I can do this by what I already do now in my garden, and that is chop and drop. I grow a lot of plants throughout the property and I harvest from them, and at the end of the season I don't pull them out and get rid of them. I don't even pull them out and put them in the compost pile. I just chop and drop them right where they are. Sometimes I'll even move that organic matter into other parts of the garden, make a mulch for certain plants. There's also another thing I could do during this summertime that actually I've never done before, and that is to intentionally use what is called cover crops. And that is where you are planting a particular crop in a garden bed without the thought really of a harvest, but you are using that plant to sometimes bring in its own nitrogen, because some of these plants produce their own nitrogen, to get it into the ground. You're more concerned about not getting that plant to the end of its life, but at a certain point you're just chopping, dropping it, a lot of the times tilling it into the ground, and use what they call green manure, which is basically just the plant matter. And there's certain plants that do very well for cover cropping. I know here in the South I hear a lot about sun hemp. Beans are another good one because they produce their own nitrogen and you're not worried about getting any bean crops. In fact, I've heard it said that with a bean cover crop, you don't want to get any beans from it. Right when you see those flower blossoms starting to show, you want to chop and drop it right away in order to get as much of that nitrogen as you can. So the purpose of a cover crop is nothing more than just building up your soil, getting more organic matter and nutrition back into it. It's a great thing to do for the summertime when it's just too hot to go out there. So I do the chop and drop. I've never done cover cropping, but there is something that I do now that is kind of a bit of the two. In the fall and winter time, I enjoy growing my lettuce greens in flower pots. I don't grow lettuces in the summer, but what I've been doing is when it's too hot to grow and when my lettuces are done in those flower pots, I grow cowpeas. Here in the deep South, in Florida, where it is hot and humid, cowpeas are wonderful and they produce their own nitrogen. So every summer, and sometimes actually in spring, I do go around and plant those cowpeas in the flower pots, let them grow out. Now in cover cropping, like I've said before, you're not going to want to produce the peas because more nitrogen is produced before the beans set. But I admit, I want to harvest cowpeas as well, so I do let them go all the way. And I let the beans grow onto the plant, get plump, and as soon as the bean pod turns a little tan colored, I pick them. So the question is now, will I still have some nitrogen in those flower pots enough to grow my leafy greens in fall and winter? So after I harvested my beans and right before the plant really started to die back and ending its life cycle, I did dig up one of my cowpeas just to see if I could find those nitrogen nodules that I hear all about. And I did find them. And at one point I did wonder to myself, could that be a nematode? Because I know if you have nematodes, your roots become very knobbly and knotty. But I did go online just to take a look at some pictures of what those nitrogen nodules look like, and it sure looked like what I had growing in that flower pot on the root system of that cowpea. So that was really neat to see. I did notice that there were not a lot of them, and I actually don't know how much more nitrogen I could have gotten if I didn't let those beans go to seed, well, basically produce the bean. But another thing I need to think about is I didn't plant a whole lot, because like I said, in cover cropping, you might be taking an entire bed, an entire field, and just planting multiple plants of whether it be cowpeas, sun hemp, whatever it is you're choosing to use. You're going to have the nitrogen, it's just going to be in a smaller area, because I only put in about 2 or 3 plants per flower pot. So what I'm trying to say is I need to be realistic of how much I'm going to have in that space with the little bit that I grew. But I did see the nodules. At the end of the summer season, I did take those cowpea plants and I did chop, and I just dropped them right into the flower pot themselves. And as fall came around, I did plant my lettuce seedlings in those flower pots. And I was very intentional not to put any store-bought fertilizers in there. In fact, I didn't want to put any fertilizer in there. I just wanted to see what the cowpeas would do if I used them as a sort of cover crop over the summer. And they did grow very well. I had multiple flower pots all around the garden bed. I know that I did not give these lettuce plants any special attention because, like I said, number one, I wanted to see what just the cowpeas would do to help the lettuce plants. But our puppy, Lunabelle, joined the family, and she was a young puppy, and all my attention pretty much went to tending to her and not to the garden. In fact, in that fall and winter, I didn't do any compost tea or any fertilization with the garden beds because I was so busy with her. So the lettuce in the flower pots with the cowpeas were also not tended to in that way. So they just grew as they did, and they did very well. So some of my final thoughts that I have with this project is, number one, I am not a scientist. I am just a backyard gardener, and I think most of us here watching this video are backyard gardeners too. I will say when I do these experiments, I do my best to have a certain set of rules or boundaries in what I do, because I do want to see what's going to happen, but I also understand, like I said, I'm a backyard gardener, we're just doing our life, and you got to balance the two. I did notice that I had really good lettuce, and every season, especially with fall and winter, I do prep the garden beds with, maybe store-bought fertilizers, organic fertilizers, and throughout the season I'm using some homemade like compost tea that I use. But with Lunabelle, our puppy, joining us that season, I didn't do anything extra in the garden. So to really see those cowpeas at work, the nitrogen nodules in the soil, helping the lettuce grow in the flower pots, it just really, like I said, I didn't do any extra work, so I do believe some of those nitrogen nodules had done something. It was low work and less store-bought materials in this project. It was just the cowpeas. And like I said before, with cover cropping, I've read that you're not going for the harvest. You are trying to grow the plant up and chop and drop it, get that green manure, that plant material into your soil to help add more organic matter and nitrogen into your soil, more nutrients. And for me, with the cowpeas, I still wanted to harvest the cowpeas, and I wasn't sure if it was going to affect the experiment I was doing. And I will say I didn't do a side-by-side of one that I didn't harvest from and one that I did, because like I said, home gardener, I still want my cowpeas. But bottom line, our lettuce looked good. I still got my cowpeas now, and then I got my lettuces later. Something I did think about with this project is it might not have been a big cover cropping in a garden space, but this is great for small space gardeners. Perhaps you want to do things more natural and more from your own resources too. And this would be a great way to add more organic matter into, maybe if you were doing container growing, and adding more nutrition as well. And it might be another way to get 2 harvests, because like I said, if you're a small space gardener, you're going to want to maybe harvest those cowpeas or whatever you use for cover cropping, and then still have that harvest for later, like your lettuces or whatever else you are growing. And I think most climates can do this way of cover cropping. I'll just call it cover cropping, because maybe cowpeas wouldn't be best for you. For me, here in the hot, humid climate and sandy soil that I garden in, cowpeas are great for all of that. But maybe you're watching from another climate. Maybe there's another kind of bean that would work best, or another type of plant that maybe adds more nutrients or green matter, green manure for wherever you're growing in. And perhaps your timing might be a little different. And only you can know that and experiment with it because of where you garden at. But being here, hot, humid Florida, cowpeas are the thing for me. And the big question is, will I be doing this again? And yes, I will. Actually, yes, I am. I have cowpeas out there right now in my flower pots that I'm growing. It is hot here in our summertime. I don't want to be going out there too often, and cowpeas really take care of themselves for the most part. So I'm doing that now in order to get ready for my fall and winter lettuce that I'll be planting in those flower pots. I've done this last year, I'm doing it again this year, and I plan to do this in the future. And as time goes on, we'll see more and more how it goes. So whether you're looking for something to grow in your hot summertime or something beneficial to grow for your soil, I hope that this experiment of growing cowpeas in pots now to help with my leafy greens later can help you too. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.